I've become a believer in medicinal roots that you can use to grind up roots of wood and make tea into tea bags. You can buy tea bags really cheap on eBay or Amazon, and you can grind if you can get them ground to a reasonably fine sawdust or granules. You can use a coffee bean grinder, something like this to grind them up. What a mess! You can use it to grind them up and make a really fine powder. It makes a great medicinal tea if you're trying that. I'm convinced. I really wasn't into this for long, but anyway, I'd made a couple of attempts at how to grind the roots, or some of them are really hard, into small enough pieces to put into this coffee bean grinder, and hit on a solution the third attempt, which is a pretty dramatic departure. I just tried to make it more industrial, and it looks like this. Let me just kind of let you have a little look at this thing. If you can picture this what this device does, it took about an hour to make this out of plywood and some 2x4s. And the construction, the usage of it is basically you set this on a table saw, the side guide's here, and you feed it the direction of the arrows into the table saw. And then the kerf of the saw is cutting. It's a setup, well, you can see the dimensions. If it's a 2x4 you're doing, it's 2 1/16 of an inch side guide setting. Anyway, you're cutting, you make it, and you just slide this box back and forth across your table saw, and the saw blade is basically coming through here, and just cutting through those roots, and then they fall down in, because this is set at 45s. It falls back in, and as you go back and forth, it just cuts them over and over and throws them into the saw. I'll show you how to capture that in a moment, but some of the construction, how to capture the sawdust that you can eventually grind here and get to a real fine consistency. This is probably enough tea for a medicinal I'm taking that daily to last me about a year for, I'm guessing about 6 or 8 cents on the dollar if I buy the full roots or the roots and then grind them myself. But anyway, this you can kind of see the construction method of it here. I will note that this is a 2x4 dimension in width, and notice the grain of the 2x4 is running up and down here, and the cross piece 2x4s inside here are sitting horizontal instead of vertical. And the reason for that, I didn't want the saw kerf to just start a split that would split out here, so the running across this way is much more stable. And this, on the ends, you can see that I've got a vertical and a horizontal, so those are glued, and you can see I've used 16 gauge brads you could probably use finishing nails, but you don't want your nails, obviously, if it's not obvious, but you don't want your nails to go far enough in when you're assembling this thing that it goes into this kerf, because when you do that initial cut with your saw, I built this out of one 2x4 and just set the 45s here, and then when I got it all assembled, then I just ran it through the saw and made this cut and this cut and this cut all at once. It's actually proven to be about twice as long as it needs to be. This section, by the time I got going on, I wasn't even using this section, and I might, if I made another one, I might make it the same way, but I would probably stop this kerf cut along in here and not even open up the back of it. In fact, I realized what was happening, and I didn't cut very deep in the back at all, but I was to the point when I was using it, and in fact made all of this in probably a total of, 15 minutes, and then another 10 minutes to grind it here, using this device once I had it made. So anyway, it's worked great. Any questions, just be careful with it. Obviously, there's a lid that goes on this thing. It's a pretty violent process, and I may see about sealing this lid a little bit better so that the dust doesn't get out, because that's some of the good stuff. And anyway, it's a violent process, and I may think of a way to fasten that lid, because you can feel it bumping pretty violently under there when this is going on. And be careful with this, because you are working with a live table saw, and you know all the precautions. And be sure to read the instructions on the saw and be careful with this thing, because the reason I built it this way is because it's a violent process that gets it done, gets the job done. And once the box is finished and ready to go, what you want to do is, and you've cut the kerf in here in the center you got a usable box. I recommend taking a brush and get all the sawdust out of your table saw. Mine has a ducting at the bottom where everything is shot down into the saw. And I put a plastic bag around that with a rubber band on it once I got it completely clean, and so that the only sawdust that was in the saw or coming through the system was the actual sawdust of the root that I wanted. So I wasn't making tea out of 2x4 dust. So good luck with it. Be careful, and hope you enjoy it.